lost my best friend. Hey, rest in peace, Nathan. They killed my brother too. Don't know my daddy. Ooh, my sister going to jail. Feel like I'm going to hell. Yeah, Lord, hear me. I just need some motivation. And I got tired of all these rumors and they hate. I feel my best when I'm worry-free. Mama, don't you worry. Ain't nobody hurting me. Yeah, Lord, hear me. I just need some motivation. My money, like I ain't.
Welcome, everybody, to the Hot Tag Hooligans Wrestling Podcast Show. I'm Aaron. That's Tom. And tonight, you may have seen her on her own YouTube channel, or you may have listened to her quite a bit on a Wrestling Gal podcast. It's the one and only. It's Samira. How's it going?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on tonight.
Absolutely. We've been talking, me and you've been talking for a while about getting you on here, and I'm glad we're finally getting you on here, especially towards WrestleMania season. There's a lot going on right now. But first of all, congratulations on your last couple of shows. I've really enjoyed those quite well, especially with talking with someone like Melina. How was that experience?
It was so much fun. She's always the sweetest person ever. I met her back in 2019 when I interviewed her at WrestleCon, and then I met her a few months after that. We had another interview, and she's always been such a sweet person, and I love always getting the chance to talk with her.
Yeah, she is someone who's very underrated. I feel like throughout her WWE run, a lot of people always put her with Eminem instead of her singles run. And unfortunately, she's more known to a lot of people for the girl who did the splits entering the ring. But her in-ring work has always been really good. And since she came back and has been touring through a lot of different promotions, she's got it again.
Yeah, I hope we see her back soon, if she gets the surgery or if she doesn't get the surgery, but she's definitely a big player in wrestling altogether.
So, you talked about when we talk about women's wrestling and some of the returns that have happened lately, is there anybody that you can think of like that you really would like to see come back as well that you think can make an impact in the business today?
Definitely, like we were talking about Melina, I would love to see her back. She has a lot to bring to the table. Victoria, too. I mean, her coming back at the Rumble was something big, and I feel like she would definitely, her and Melina could do something together. I mean, they're the best of friends, too, so I could see that happening. There's just so many women I'd love to see come back and help the other girls. And, there's already a lot on their own rosters, and people in the indies, like I could just name so many people, but yeah, I think definitely Melina and Victoria. And the return of the Bellas, how they were talking like a couple weeks ago about coming back, so I feel they could be coming back pretty soon too.
Yeah, I understand when the female wrestlers seem to get a little bit older, it's almost like they shy away from putting them on TV. But then you've got Goldberg that's coming back wrestling. And you can't tell me that there's not a dozen or so, at least, women that could come back that can make a lot better impact than what some of those legends do. And it blows my mind that they don't even give them the time of day.
There's a double standard.
Yeah, it's like they bring them back for like the Rumble or like Mania sometimes, and like that's it. And they have stuff to bring to the table as well. Like if they're down for it, I don't see what the problem is, and why not bring them back and mix them in with this newer generation. Like just like the older guys coming back, it's like all the fans, they get excited to see when you used to watch them growing up. That's the same way with the women, so I would love that.
I'm going to show my age a little bit so Tom can have his pun joke for the night. But, I was able to watch WrestleMania 1 whenever I was younger. And watching how the women progressed from WrestleMania 1 with Richter and you had Moolah. But some of those names that you're talking about, the Victoria is one of them. A lot of people talk about the evolution of the women's in, like around 2015. But when Victoria was around, I thought that they did get a pretty good shake. You had her and Jazz. You had Lita and Trish, and they were putting on, and Mickie James showed up a little bit right after that. And there was a lot of really good matches there. And I think the younger generation now has no clue how great these women really were. And it's very sad. And you mentioned the Royal Rumble. When we see the men return at the Royal Rumble, there's this big pop. But I feel like in the women, sometimes there's not that depth. You have some really talented people like a Jillian Hall, who wasn't a world champion on the women's side and wasn't a big merchandise mover perhaps for them. And then you throw that in there with a Kelly, who was a merchandise mover for them as well, and a Victoria who was a dominant female competitor. And I think a lot of those girls kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I grew up with them specifically too, like Kelly, Melina, Eve Torres, Michelle McCool, Layla, like all those women. And I thought they were like great growing up. I wish they got more time, and I always never understood that like when I was younger. And I would love to see some of these women come back. I know a lot of people would like that. I mean, like my age and like everybody else that knew them. Like I feel like that would be great. But I don't see what's standing in the way, like how easy it is for like the men to do it. Like you're saying, like Goldberg, why can't these other women do that?
Yeah, it's definitely a double standard, like you said, and I think we're at that point with pro wrestling as a whole, the fan base. I think that they really need to start pushing that envelope a little bit, along with telling whatever stories they need to tell. And this is something that I like to bring up because there's lots of different opinions, but I want to get your take on intergender wrestling.
I don't see a problem with it. If they're like, if both the men and the women are up for it, I don't see what the problem is. It is fun, and women can do whatever the men can do as well. If there's some women that don't want to wrestle the men, that's fine. They don't have to. But I definitely like 100% support it.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan when it's a story that needs to be told. Obviously, I don't think that every story needs to have that, but I think we shy away from that too much as these big TV programs and stuff. The indies, it's all over the place, and I really hope we're going to start seeing more of that.
Yeah, WWE in the last 2 or 3 months has kind of teased that intergender. You had Reginald versus Sasha on SmackDown, and then this past Sunday you had booked Alexa Bliss versus Randy Orton. So they're kind of teasing that a little bit, that they could possibly go that route. What did you think about those two matchups?
I thought they were good. I think that, like you said, they're like teasing it. I wonder if they're like slowly bringing it in, getting a feel to it. I hope they end up doing it. I mean, like I said, I don't see a problem with it unless they're trying to think about like kids, like the men fighting the women. I'm not sure, but I thought they were good. I thought like they could do definitely more if they gave them a chance to. So hopefully, it's all leading like slowly there and let it happen.
If you got the right women in the right predicament, I think it could work. On the main roster right now, I could see like someone like a Raquel Gonzalez in NXT, Rhea Ripley is another one, and Charlotte. Those three really come to mind as someone that I could really see performing really well into intergender matches against some of the better men performers as well. And it may be because of their physicality; they're a little bit stronger. Now, I wouldn't want Sasha Banks to wrestle Drew McIntyre, or something of that nature. But there are matchups that, as the story's told right, I think could be very beneficial for the company.
But why not do McIntyre? I mean, Rey Mysterio, he fought the Big Show. I mean, what's the difference? To me, it's about the story. If they can tell the story correctly, I'm fine with it. But it's got to be, it's got to have some importance to it, and it's got to be told right. But I wouldn't counter out.
What about you, Samira? What do you think?
I mean, I agree. I think if they told the story right and they made it the right way, I think it could definitely be some.
Moving on to WrestleMania, one of the things that I'm most looking forward to WrestleMania this year is the Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks matchup. I'm very glad that they're giving us a fresh matchup that we haven't seen before. And I think those two are really going to put on a fantastic show. I was very pleased with Bianca winning the Royal Rumble. I thought that was a great choice. What were your thoughts about that matchup once they announced it?
I was really excited. I was really hoping Bianca would pick Sasha. Bianca was one of my picks to win the Rumble. So when she did, I was just like really overcome with joy. I was so excited. And I just like was hoping she'd pick Sasha. I was like, I think they would make a good match together. And then after everything that's going on, like I can't wait for their match to come up. And now we see, people want them to main event, and will WWE give it to them is the question. I mean, I think it could happen. I mean, we always say the Royal Rumble, they main event WrestleMania, so why can't they main event?
Yeah, I think what they've done so far is, I think I saw this, they have night one already I think night one is Drew versus Bobby Lashley, and Sasha and Bianca is actually on that night as well. And then night two will be the Raw Women's title match, which looks like it's going to be Asuka versus Rhea Ripley, and go with Edge and Roman Reigns and perhaps Daniel Bryan in night two. But I'm with you. If you're doing two nights, NXT's doing that. One of the nights of NXT is actually going to be main evented by Io versus Raquel Gonzalez. I think that's night one's actual main event. And that's another matchup right now. When you look at it, I think Io's phenomenal. She's one of those talents where I really would love to see her on the main roster, but I fear of what they'll do with her once she gets on the main roster. But she's perhaps one of the best in-ring performers that they have on any brand.
I agree with you. I just was trying to catch up with NXT and AEW actually right now because I have classes on Wednesday nights. So I try to catch up with them like the next day. And NXT, they have a lot of women, a lot of talent there. And Io is definitely one of them. She's great. And like you said, I just fear for some of these, superstars that come up to the main roster that, hopefully that they use them correctly. And we've seen that, like we just saw Andrade, has been released because they just don't use them right. So that's what I also fear as well. But she's a great competitor, and I'm excited to see what her and Raquel are going to do at WrestleMania, or NXT Takeover, I should say.
It's all WrestleMania to me, to be honest. I mean, it's 20 hours of wrestling on 4 nights is what it is. It's
no sleep.
Yeah, no sleep for sure.
Now you were talking about worrying about Io going to the main roster, and we just seen the debut of Rhea Ripley. So how do you think so far that that's going, and what are your expectations for her main roster stint?
Well, I think it's going good so far. I think that was the right way to bring her, like to go out for Asuka first. I think that was the right way to go and not start her off like somewhere else. I think that was perfect. I don't know. I could see her winning, but at the same time, it's like, oh, then they just kind of threw Asuka off. Like they haven't been really using Asuka like when she was supposed to face Lacey Evans, and once Lacey Evans was pregnant, they didn't really give anybody for her. It's like they forgot about her. But I don't know. I think Rhea, they could really build her up. I just was confused as to why they didn't bring her up after last year's WrestleMania. I think that would have made more sense because everybody kind of knew who she was, and you thought, oh, she's going to come to the main roster, but it didn't happen. So hopefully from here now, I'm guessing she might win the title, go on a good run, have a maybe notable fuse with a lot of people. Maybe we could see mix it up with Charlotte again once she comes back from having COVID. So I think we could see that again, actually, maybe towards SummerSlam.
I think it's exciting. We could have 2 brand new, fresh women's champions for each brand. Bianca and Ripley pull it out, and I think that going into the new year after Mania, I think that's a great way to start, in my opinion. So that's what.
Now, you mentioned that you actually liked the way that they booked Rhea this past week. And see, and I did not like it. And the main reason is I'm not a big fan of someone just coming out and saying, hey, I want a title shot, and the person agreeing with it. What gave Rhea the right to even WWE management, why would you approve that match? What has she proven? I would have had Asuka turn her down first and say, no, you got to prove yourself. You haven't even won a match. And actually, if you look at it, Rhea's on a losing streak. She lost down to Raquel Gonzalez. She wasn't the NXT champion for quite a while down there as well. But maybe, have it where she says, hey, I want the title shot. And Asuka's like, nah, you got to prove yourself. And then maybe this week she does something like she runs a gauntlet and she kind of comes out on top. I just really hate when the WWE does the whole, hey, I want a title shot. Okay, here's your title shot. Unless it's already a feud. AJ Styles and Almost is the exact same way. The New Day win the title and immediately they come out. Almost has never had a match in his life. And AJ hasn't been a tag team forever, but yet they issued a challenge. They get to jump the line. So that type of booking to me is very lazy. But I would have loved to have Rhea, perhaps maybe she beats Peyton Royce and Natty or somebody else like this week, and she kind of earns that spot.
Yeah, I could see what you mean if she would have like denied her, but I think though, like the way like how they were bringing her, like yeah, this was the perfect way to bring her instead of like putting her with somebody else. But yeah, I could see what you mean. I think maybe they could have done that way. It would have made more sense.
I definitely think they should have done it a little differently, but I do give them a little bit of a pass because I think they were planning for Charlotte, and with her coming down with COVID and all that, they had to make some last minute adjustments. But they still could have done something, even if they had a gauntlet match tonight and she happened to be in it and it didn't challenge her. They could have done something. I agree. I almost feel like it should have debuted 2 months ago probably, and built a little bit more story going into it. But things do happen, and I do have to make some changes on the fly. So I mean, it could be a lot worse for sure.
And there's still time for perhaps Charlotte to get healthy. We are 3 weeks out, and there's a possibility she may be inserted into that match as well to make it a 3-way. I could see that one as well. So you talk about some new, fresh blood. Let's go to AEW real quick. Last week, I'm assuming you've seen the match, Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker. To me, yes, it was a little bit rough in spots, but man, what a match that was. To me, that was like a breath of fresh air. And when you look at AEW, if you watch AEW Dark, there's fantastic women wrestling every week. They're giving some time a little bit. You're getting to see talent like Maddie Rankowski, and you're getting to see talent like Alex Gracia. And then you get to the main show, and I thought this week's follow-up was very bad. I don't know if you've got to it yet, but it was just basically Britt coming out and just doing an interview where I thought last week was a career-making performance on her part.
I did not get to that part yet. I'm still getting there, but I thought last week's match was phenomenal. I really loved it, and it showed that they can do other things like men could do, like the thumbtacks and ladders, like all that. That reminded me of Orton and Mick Foley's match back in, I believe it was 2004. So it reminded me of that. I'm like, okay, these women could do anything the men can do. It was really great match. And like you said, you have Dark, and like that's where they really shine there. And then you come to the main roster, and they need more of a chance. And I thought they proved that. And then when you're just telling me now, like they only gave her an interview after that whole thing, like that's it. Like, come on, you guys just did that. Why just an interview?
Yeah, I just don't know why companies are so afraid to give the women the time. I was shocked going in when I heard that last week they were going to be the main event. I was completely shocked because I didn't think AEW would do that with them, but it paid off tremendously. And Britt is someone, since she started with AEW, to me, that was missing a little something. She had to look, her character work since she's joined up with Rebel has been fantastic. And now she's a badass who can take a beating. And to me, she's the face of AEW's women right now. And I would have put her strictly against Sheeta coming up very soon.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I,
I mean,
uh,
yeah,
they that moment that they need to run with, and dropping the ball there. Not that they can't come out of it, but really need to push that strong and keep going because they get a lot of grief for their women's division, and there's so many talented women there. I just don't feel like they're given the opportunity and the right timing. Whether it be the right timing on the card, enough time in their match. It's like want to they want to do a good job, but they're not exactly sure how. And that's kind of my take on it. But yeah, I think they need to really push that hard. While she's primed and ready. The moment that she had with the blood on her face was so reminiscent of Steve Austin and Bret Hart. And you just got to keep pushing that when something that epic, you can't just let it flounder. And I feel like that's kind of what they did.
Go ahead, Samir.
Oh, well, yeah, like you said, I mean, they made these other shows, to highlight the, more stars, because like WWE, they have stars they don't use because they have a full roster. They're trying to give everybody their time, and I understand that, and they're trying to make more time. But you also have to think about, main TV time. You got to see who you could push there as well. So, Britt Baker, she's great, and I think they have it, and I hope they can figure out what they're doing with this because, like you said, I don't get why they just did this interview and just like left it at that. Hopefully, it leads to something bigger and better.
One hot topic with professional women's wrestling is the Mount Rushmore of women's wrestling. And when we had Ella J on, we got her pick, and we've had a couple other talents give their picks. Who is your Mount Rushmore as far as women's wrestling goes?
Oh, geez. Oh, this one is a very hard question. A lot of women come to mind because they're all just like really amazing, and it's hard to pick just four. But if I have to pick four, it's definitely Lita, one of the best of all time. Michelle McCool, um, Beth Phoenix, and AJ Lee. I think those four women, they've all done like so much within their careers and opened doors for people. I think they're just amazing.
I love your top four because it's totally different than most people that we've had on there, but when you break it down sort of the way you did, I can see some of those people on a Mount Rushmore. Look at AJ. She's doing a lot of stuff outside of wrestling as well. Beth was very influential in her career, the way she went about things. And I'm really excited about watching her Icon whenever it comes out here in a couple of weeks on the Peacock Network. I say Peacock Network now, instead of WWE Network. And then, Lita. I mean, it's always that Lita Trish debate. So what is it about Lita over Trish for you?
I don't know. I feel like Lita's just she's a badass. And she did like a lot she did within, not that Trish did, but like, Lita was within the men and she was just like, I don't know. There's just something about Lita. I'm just like, she's it. She's, I think she's just cool and she's like a badass and she like, not that Trish isn't like, she's something like, she's different. And she has also
For me,
different. She's as like, I don't know. It's hard to describe it.
For me, I feel like it was a little bit edgier, and that's why I like it a little bit more than Trish. But they're both phenomenal. But I tell you what's weird about the Mount Rushmore. Doesn't matter, man. Ever. Mine changes from week to week. You could tell me ask me what it is on a Sunday, and I may give you a different answer 2 weeks later. And I think that's, it's there's really no right or wrong answers. So I think there's always opinions on that.
Yeah. Well, Samira, before we let you go, let everyone out there know where they can find you at on social media.
So you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok as It's Samira. I know that kind of gets confusing. Some people just put like it's Samira, but it's Samira, and then you can find me on YouTube. It's Samira.
Awesome, awesome. I appreciate you greatly for joining us tonight. Enjoy your work as always. Look forward. Who you got coming up? Can you let us know?
So it's actually tomorrow. I do every Friday. So tomorrow's guest is actually Karam. I call him Karam because that's the Arabic thing, but he calls it by something else. Karam, I think he said. Yeah. He is an independent wrestler. He's from Michigan.
Awesome, awesome. Everyone, make sure you check that out as well. Appreciate you for joining us. This weekend, we got a crazy interview coming up with the one and only Miss Molly Spartan, and we'll drop that later on this week, upcoming week as well. Also, do not forget to check out Tom's Hooligans Heist, a 5-minute time limit, and of course our newest one that we dropped last night, The Feud, which previews Billy Starks versus Gary J down in Tampa, Florida at Family Reunion. For everyone out there, make sure you guys are staying safe, and we will see you all next week. Thank you.